to Inside Personal Growth Podcast. Deep dive with us as we unlock the secrets to personal development, empowering you to thrive. Here, growth isn't just a goal, it's a journey. Tune in, transform, and take your life to the next level by listening to just one of our podcasts. Well, welcome back to Inside Personal Growth. This is Greg Voisen, the host of Inside Personal Growth. And honest to goodness, right in San Diego is Simon Vitter, and I'm pleased to have him back. He's a good friend, and I'm thrilled to have him back on. And he's actually going through a bit of a transformation, which is why we're having him back on the show. And he is doing so much, and he's going to be known as the Vision Architect. Good day to you, Simon. How you doing?
Doing great. Great to be here with you, Greg.
Well, it's good to have you. Thank you so much. I'm going to let the listeners know a little bit about you. He is the CEO of Standout International, which is going to become the Vision Architect, but you'll find him out there under Standout International. He spent over 2 decades helping Fortune 500 executives from Microsoft and Dell to Qualcomm and the NFL create a transformational change. And really, what makes Simon so special just isn't an impressive client roster. It's his unique approach to visioneering. And that's what we're going to get across this morning. Through his proprietary process, Simon has helped leaders craft compelling visions that don't just hang on the conference walls, but actually ignite passion and drive real behavioral change through the organizations. He co-authored a book called Leading with Vision, which you can check that out on Amazon. We'll have links below in the show notes to the book so that you can get the book and to all of his websites, simonvitter.com. A groundbreaking book that was based on research across 400 companies that shows leaders how to connect with today's workforce at a more emotional level, just not a cognitive one. It's, as we said, it's kind of particularly critical in today's workplace where traditional motivational approaches are kind of falling short. Today's employees need more than financial incentives. They need purpose, and especially the Gen Zers and Gen Xers. And they want more purpose and they want more stake in the game. So, Simon, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Greg.
Pleasure to have you. Well, let's dig right in. And we'll use kind of your book as a foundation for all of this, but there's more going on in your life than just the book. So it's been over 7 years since you were last on our show, when you first published the book. And when you look back at the research that sparked the book, that created a compelling vision, it was number 1, leadership needs to be ranked number 5 in development priorities. How has this gap basically evolved since you guys last wrote this book? There were 3 of you authors on the book.
Yes. So initially, we do this trend survey where we ask over 400 companies what are some of the most critical topics in leadership development. And what came out 7, 8 years ago is like leading with vision and creating an emotional connection with the employees is the most needed skill for leaders. It's also one of the most underdeveloped. So it's a huge gap. And since then, I think the gap hasn't been reduced. In fact, the gap has widened. And people have a need for having clarity. I think there is a crisis in clarity. When you talk to companies and employees, ask them, what's the vision for your company? Where are you going? Sometimes they don't know how to answer it. And if they know what, they are not able to articulate in a way that creates excitement.
Yeah, it's almost like storytelling, isn't it? If a CEO needs to get up in front of a group of his employees, let's say, he has to be a good storyteller.
Correct. I like this saying, stories sell, facts tell. And facts are goals or numbers and processes. They're important. They tell. But if you want to engage, you want to persuade, you want to bring people along, you're going to create a story. You need to create a vision that people can see in their mind's eye.
Totally. And the
I
whole
use this.
the
I can like maybe use a little example here.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I'm gonna invite everybody on to my favorite beach in San Diego. So I'll give you two invitations, and then at the end you tell me which one is more compelling for you to join. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So we're gonna go to Pacific Beach, and it's a beautiful sunny day, 85-degree. It's around noontime, and you have shorts, a t-shirt, barefoot, and together we are stepping on the sand. It's nice white sand in Pacific Beach, and we're walking towards the ocean. As you touch the sand, you can feel the warm sand between your toes. As you look to the ocean, you see the sprinkles on top of the waves, and you can hear the ocean and have a little breeze in your face. As you look up in the blue sky, you see 25 pelicans flying in V format over the ocean. And we're walking through the sand, and looking backwards, you can see your footprints and you feel alive. That's version number one.
Mhm.
I invite you now using version number two. I invite you to Pacific Beach, my favorite beach. We're going to meet at the end of Garnett by the pier. And then from there, we walk along the beach for 1.3 miles. At the end, Mission Bay, we return and walk back 1.3 miles, total of 2.6 miles. We have 0 elevation, and it takes us 1 hour and 45 minutes. I gave you two different versions for the same walk.
Mhm.
Which one is more inviting and compelling?
Well, obviously, number one, it gets you to visualize. In other words, I could feel the sand beneath my toes. I could see the pelicans. I could hear the ocean spray. I mean, and that's what you're saying is to get to the emotional level, you need to create a word picture in somebody's mind. The first one gave me a great word picture. You know, the second one was was mechanical. It's like, hey, we're going to meet, we're going to walk 1.6 miles, it's going to take us an hour and a half. Boom, done. Right? So I
So
get it.
translating that to business and leadership, I work with a lot of big companies. I work with leaders, VPs, directors, C-level. And how do they lead? They lead mechanical with Excel sheets and PowerPoints.
Mhm.
They have numbers, they have processes, they have maps. It's like mechanical. It makes sense for cognitive, for the brain, but they are missing the heart piece. And how do you engage the employee's heart, commitment, engagement, motivation? Is you create a picture that they can see and say, yeah, I want to be part of that journey that we're going over the next 2, 3 years.
Mhm.
Yes, it's going to be sweaty and steep and challenging and unexpected and ambiguous. And I want to be part of that.
Yeah. No,
And the story and make it sensory rich, make it visual is what visionary leaders are able to capture.
well, I think your tagline is making the invisible visible, right? And let's dive into this Lift 6 model. You say the first step is to imagine the invisible. Can you give us a concrete example of a leader who successfully saw something that others couldn't see? And I'm going to make a note here. Sarah MacArthur was for the longest time and still well connected with Marshall Goldsmith. And she told a story to me once, which I think is very compelling here, about Peter Drucker. And Peter Drucker used to speak to Miss Hesselblom, who was the head of the Girl Scouts. And they became very good friends. And one day, Peter Drucker was being interviewed, and the reporter asked him a question. And he said, "Look out the window. What do you see that I don't see that you can do something about?" And I thought for a minute, that was such a compelling answer and Drucker said it was just the throwaway that he just came up with. But the reality is, it's become quite famous. Is like, look out the window. You all have a vision. What is it that you see that you can bring to the table that could help us, right? That could change something. Talk about your lift model and how you successfully have helped others see this.
I like your analogy of looking out the window. When I do workshop with the managers, I say, okay, let's all stand at the window and looking outside and imagine 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road. What are you seeing? And do we have a shared vision? Do we all see the same? Are we able to articulate the same picture in our own words? Can we see it as a management team? And what happens if they don't see that?
It's not
Quick
alone.
example, I was working with a manufacturing company, and one of the VP of operations, he was very frustrated and said, our management team is not aligned. And he said, it feels like we all want to go and climb the mountains, and everybody wants to climb a different peak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Imagine, what does that do? Everybody has their own equipment, their own path, their own map. And they're, instead of saying, hey, we all want to climb mountain and we all agree to climb the same peak.
Yes, as a team.
I have one example. I worked with, her name is Mary. She was a partner for a marketing agency here in San Diego. And when I met her, I got introduced to her. She said, what? I work long hours, come in early, work late, work on the weekends. I don't have a life. And she said, I wish I could take 2 weeks off and spend 2 weeks with my family in Italy. Just unplug, no computer, nothing, just to relax and be present with my family. So she had this picture in her mind, but it was so far. She said, it's not going to happen because I need to be here. I cannot leave this company without for 2 weeks. And then so I said, let's make this invisible visible. What if you believe this is possible? And I helped her create a picture in her mind's eye that said, what would it look like if I were able to go away for 2 weeks? The team has a clear plan. They know what to do. They have clear roles. They work and support each other. So she created a 2.5-page document outlining the ideal marketing agency, the type of clients they work with, what the team interacts, how they are motivated and helping each other, the processes defined, even the office, it's light and bright and colorful. So you wrote it down in 2.5 pages, communicated it to the team, and the team said, wow, this is great. Now we know we are going. I want to be part of that. I want to support that. And it created engagement on the team level.
Yeah.
Years later, Mary took 2 weeks off, went to Italy with her family, unplugged, and her team was able to run the business without her being there. So it's that invisible that she had an idea, that she had to make it believe. She had to make it crystal clear. She had to be able to communicate to that and bring the people along so they can see it and support the path.
The story is very compelling because I think when a leader understands how to create a compelling vision, they can bring so many more people along and create greater alignment and achieve so much more. So all the KPIs, not throwing them out the window, but they're easier to achieve. And you talk about 4 key leadership approaches: courage, clarity, connectivity, and culture. If you had to pick just one that leaders struggle with mostly today, which one would it be and why?
I would say it's either clarity or courage. Probably courage.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have
Why?
courage.
And why courage? Why do you think they lack the courage? Are they afraid to actually do this?
Yeah, there are 3 major reasons mostly leaders struggle with vision setting. And that kind of explains why courage isn't so important. Number one, a lot of managers, leaders, they have tremendous pressure for short-term results and performance. And they focus on KPIs and targets and monthly goals and quarterly targets. And they're getting overwhelmed on short-term transactional tasks and projects. It's easy, it's manageable, and it's actionable. But it prevents them of really focusing what their role is, creating a strategic picture where they want to go and bring people along. So they don't dedicate enough time because they are focused on the short term. The second one is many leaders are not very comfortable with ambiguity.
Mm,
When you talk about visioning, it takes intuition, creativity. And so it's something that most leaders, we don't learn that in business school. We learn
right.
financials and process and operations, but we don't learn how to creatively create a story that sells and engages people. So that creativity requires reflection, deep thinking, the ability to slow down. And so many are afraid to make that time again because they're focused on the short term. And the last one is many leaders confuse goals with vision. They underestimate the power of a vision. They think, yeah, it's fluffy, it's soft, because it's not actionable. But when they are able to create that picture and that people can see and share and get committed to, it creates this unleashes this energy and motivation. And imagine you as a leader are able to create that compelling picture, people are aligned and believe in that. What would that do to your organization? Everybody would align their energy, resources towards that. There's alignment, there's less infighting. So
I think what they do when they get to this point is they can unlock their intuition. Some of the biggest business leaders around, and including Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and Steve Jobs, all used to say that the biggest factor in them compelling was their ability to touch into their intuition and to listen to that intuition. And so some people will say, oh, well, um, I don't really know where it comes from. Well, call it spiritual if you want, call it whatever. But the point is we all have it. We just have to fine tune and listen inside. You're either being shown something or you're hearing voices or someone's talking to you. You need to do that. And I wanted you to distinguish between, you talked about courage, them not being courageous. And then, um, the other factor is being vulnerable. Okay. And tell us about a leader you worked with who demonstrated both courage and vulnerability, as Brene Brown says, and what the impact was.
I was working with a management team here in the US in the consumer goods industry. And the CEO, his name was Mike. And when I work with Mike, I collected feedback. And Mike was sharp, ambitious, goal-oriented, very intelligent, but also very driven. And when I got collected feedback, everyone said, Mike is sharp, but I don't trust Mike. And so I collected feedback, and what happened is everybody said, it happened the last year twice. Mike was in a hallway and talking about a project with an engineer that lost a lot of money. And Mike lost it. He got frustrated, even almost angry, red face, inappropriate language, yelling at this project engineer. Everybody heard it, and those who were not there, they heard it at the water cooler.
Mm.
And so Mike created this culture of fear because nobody want to be yelled at by the CEO.
Mhm.
So I confronted Mike and says, "Hey, this is what people say about you. They don't trust you." Mike didn't like it. And he acknowledged it and said, "Yeah, I remember those two situations. I'm surprised how much those situations impact the culture and the trust." And he said, "You know what? I'm going to change." He showed vulnerability. He went back to his team and said, "Hey, I'm sorry. I know I lost it twice. I want to do better. I want to be more calm and composed." And he called it his whole personal anger management program. Instead of letting it out on his team,
Colleagues? Yeah.
he went, start running again, find a way to channel his energy in a positive way. A year later, he started to engage and build trust, and people started to trust him. So he showed vulnerability and said, "You know what? I'm sorry. I made a mistake." And a year later, his team started to gel, created more cohesion, and it started the foundation to create a very compelling strategy that actually helped the company win in the marketplace.
Well, there's a great story because he was bold. He had to be bold to do that. And he had to be vulnerable. And originally, he didn't want to be vulnerable. He wanted to basically let people know that he was in control. And some really none of us is in control all the time. We have to be, as you said, in these times of ambiguity and uncertainty. Sometimes we have to learn how to go with the flow. And, you identified 5 major obstacles to leading with vision. This is all about leading with vision. Which of these obstacles has become more pronounced in today's business environment? Meaning, hey, 2025 versus 7 years ago when you guys wrote the book originally.
So one is definitely the lack of trust. And then how do you continue to build trust in a safe environment? That's one. But even more importantly is going back to what you said about intuition. We got to turn up our intuitive skills.
Yeah.
I have this belief that many answers are in us. So we have to dig deeper and allow them to surface. And now neuroscience has a lot of new insights about how the brain works. We can understand our human operating system, which is a lot with the brain. And when we talk about vision and imagination and also thinking about new possibilities, what happens in the brain? And when we think about the future and new opportunities, the brain accesses the DMN, the default mode network. And that's interesting when we are resting, that brain is activated. Parts of the brain who are connected to the imagination, the future, and the emotions are activated. That means we have to rest, we have to slow down, we have to find stillness so we can access the parts of the brain that help us create a vision and look at new opportunities and imagine what could be. And that is positively connected to emotions. So if I'm focusing on tasks and a list of projects and I got to do this, 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 and this, parts of the brain are not accessible. So it's very counterintuitive. It's important to make time for intuition, reflection, stillness, and then we are able to access parts of the brain that will help us get the answers.
So true. I remember this story that was told by Stephen Covey Jr. He said his father used to give people signs for their doors, for their offices, because their offices used to be like revolving doors for people coming in with problems. And he said, just take 2 hours a day and put the sign on that says, I'm thinking. Um, Meaning, don't bother me. My phone is off. I'm not looking at my internet or my emails. I'm thinking. I'm spending time thinking. And that's reflection time. That's time to reflect. That's time to sit with yourself. That's time to look out the window and see what others don't see that you think you could help to bring solutions to, right? And you've worked with leaders across many cultures and countries. You were born in Switzerland, and there are universal truths about visionary leadership, I would assume. And or does it vary significantly as you see it, Simon, from culture to culture? So let's just talk Switzerland versus the United States. What differences do you see? And if you don't see any, why do you think you don't see any?
When it comes to visioning, I don't see differences in terms of how to apply it. There might be some cultural differences that we have to be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the other thing is like, who is best at visioning? Which professions, which professionals have mastered the skill of visioning best? And they're athletes.
Ah, of course.
So I grew up in Switzerland. I was 4 years old when I stood on skis. I love skiing. When you look at the ski, I think the best skier today is Marco Odermatt. He won downhill and Super G and giant slalom and the last 4 seasons. And so when you look at downhill skiers, what do they do an hour before the race?
Visualize.
They're standing in the snow, and then they go through the race in their mind's eye, the jumps and everything. They go 2 minutes through the race in their mind's eye. And they're coming down with 80, 90 miles and take a sharp turn. The brain doesn't have time to think. If they visualize that over again, that mental rehearsal, that mental simulation, the body doesn't, the system doesn't differentiate if it's real or it's imagined.
Yeah.
And studies show that we can imagine and visualize the body kind of when we use it sensory based. The body learns from that. And so athletes are really, really good in visioning a specific performance, a specific swing, a stroke. Ice skaters,
Tennis players, ice
tennis
skaters.
players, basketballers, they're visualizing a throw, but they're also visualizing a specific game. They're visualizing a halftime, they're visualizing a whole game. And the longer you visualize, the harder it gets. That they visualize a whole season, they visualize a whole career. So taking that concept to business, a lot of the business leaders talk about vision 3, 5, 10 years. That's probably the hardest thing. And I say, use shorter time frames.
Okay.
Visualize for upcoming presentation. You have an offsite strategy session. Use visualization for that. How are you gonna come together? How do you challenge each other? Create a picture where people access their collective intelligence. They listen to each other. They challenge each other with questions. We can apply visualizing for those events. You can visualize a sales quarter. I say, okay, good. Let's assume at the end of the quarter, we all salespeople have successful. What would that look like? What would we have achieved? What would be the attitude we have shown during those 3 months? You can visualize an IT project. Imagine 7 months from now, the project has successfully been implemented. Let's create that picture. Let's start with the end in mind, as Stephen Covey said. It's one of the 7 habits of highly effective people.
Yeah.
You define the end in mind, you crystallize it, you make it so clear, everybody sees it, and say, okay, good, let's do backward engineering. What do we need to do today? So the chances happen in 7 months that it's just going to be a successful implementation. So
It
we
was
can
in, it,
use
it was
those.
interesting. I think what you're saying, I'm reflecting on a story, and I just played the podcast back. J.D. Tremblay, a guy out of Canada who did the DECA. So imagine this, if you would. It's 5 triathlons in a row on every island in the Pacific out in Hawaii.
Wow.
5 in a row. So we're talking the bike ride, 5 triathlons back to back to back to back to back. No time in between. Just doing it. So he said, you know, only 3 people finished. He was one. Okay, very few people have finished this something DECA. The point he said is, as an athlete, you have to have at some point during this grueling process faith. And he said, faith plays such a big role in you being able to complete something, right? Meaning, I had to get to my spiritual side. He said, I don't care if you're Christian or you're Muslim or you're this, you're that, or whatever, but I could have never made it through the grueling, intense pain and challenges that I had, right? So I look at athletes like that, and it just always amazes me as where they can find that energy, where they can find that stored up energy to just get them to not quit, right? And that's one of the things you don't want people to quit. So if you were writing this book today, what would you add or change based on what you've learned since 2017? And what would you say to the listeners?
One of the most important things is what we discussed. Slow down, reflect, make time for deep thinking. If you want to create a compelling vision, make space for it. And running around and getting the next project accomplished, focusing on a task doesn't do it.
Right.
We need to carve out plan time for that, relax, and create an environment where we can really focus on deep thinking. That's number one. Number two, do it with others. Create an open, safe, trusting dialogue where people challenge with each other. Look at all the successful startups. They had discussions, they have arguments, they talk about what could be. And it's usually not a one person's accomplishment, it's a team behind. So we need to engage the team to really create foster imagination and tap into collective intelligence. And it's that human aspect that will make the difference. Especially with AI, knowledge becomes commodity.
Mhm, mhm.
We cannot even compete with AI on knowledge, but we can compete with imagination, with creating new possibilities, new way of thinking. And that's a mental game. Just what you said about this triathlon, who did 5 in a row. It was a mental game, the faith, the belief that helped him get through. We have to do this as a mental game. We have to sharpen our mental game.
And I want to add, and we have to listen to our intuition.
Absolutely.
When you do that, the combination of listening to intuition, sharpening your, as you were saying, your faith or having some faith, and then using your intellect, applying the intellect to this, actually it helps you to achieve these goals. Now, we got a lot of listeners that are leaders that listen to the show, whether they're middle line leaders or top end leaders, who want to create that taking the stairs two at a time
Mhm.
to the top, the energy for their organization, as you're saying, hey, we're going to run up these stairs two at a time, right? Um, what is the very first step they should take tomorrow morning to get their team to take the stairs two at a time?
I would suggest start with small projects, short-term projects. Say, okay, you have an upcoming open day. You have an upcoming client event. It's okay, good. And challenge your team. Say, okay, good. We have this important negotiation with the client. Imagine this is going to be the best case scenario. Everything is going smooth and everything's great. Imagine what would be if we all are satisfied, if we win over the client, if the client is happy, we get the agreement. Some people think more in best case scenarios. We tend to think about worst case scenarios. We look at the media, it's focused on worst case scenarios. We think about AI, oh, it's gonna take jobs, it's gonna do this. It's part of that, but also, what are the opportunities? How
Mhm.
can we apply that? So balance best case scenario thinking and reduce the worst case scenario thinking.
That's great
And
advice.
one of the things I've been practicing,
Mhm.
and I learned that from a friend called Bruce Doyle. He wrote the book, Think Before Another Thought.
Mhm.
We have hundreds of thoughts per minute, and we got to be more aware of our thinking. And I challenge myself in my thinking about, is it an uplifting thought, a thought that brings me further towards where I want to go with my vision and my life? Or is it a limiting thought, takes me down, or reduces the chance to get where I want to go? And so I think, is it uplifting or is it limiting? And if it's limiting, we have a choice. We can stop nurturing that thought. The choice we have is probably the biggest power we have as human beings.
Mhm.
We can choose every moment what we think and how we think. So ask yourself, whatever you think right now, is it uplifting or is it limiting? Whatever you say about your colleagues, your company, does it bring us further or does it take us back? It's a very simple tool that I practice in my own thinking, and it makes me stop things that's unproductive, and it makes me be more focused on what I want and what I want to
It's
reach.
great advice, and I remember doing a talk just recently about growth mindset. I think that
Mm.
Carol Dweck's book is a wonderful book for everybody to read, but
Absolutely, yeah.
what you just said is so valuable. And I want my listeners to know, look in the show notes below, go to simonvitter.com, SIMONVETTER.com. Also look for his podcast. You'll see it on that website. And the podcast is called The Vision Architect, and he's going to have a lot more guests and people on the show. But we want you to go there, and there'll also be a link to the book. The book we'll have it on Amazon again down below in the show notes. You'll see all of these things: the link to the website, the link to the podcast, and the link to the book. Simon, it's been an honor having you back on the show after 7 years since writing this book and giving us an update. And for all my listeners, it's www.simonvitter.com. Simon, thanks so much. Namaste to you, and uh, to basically all those listeners out there right now that have just listened for the last 35, 40 minutes to Simon and I talking about creating a compelling vision. Go out and get his book and listen to the Vision Architect podcast. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Greg. Great pleasure to be here with you.